All right, back for part 2. I'm hyped up. You're dropping serious knowledge, baby. You're killing it. Y'all don't get it. Like, Nare is powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's been manifesting hardcore for a long time, ever since I know her. So I appreciate you sharing with folks. So last time we talked about deciding on what you want. We talked about the reason why we did the rituals and the spiritual work and that kind of stuff, and that still exists, and we still got to do that. So we've decided. You've decided what you want to manifest in your life. So tell the people or share with the people what happens next for you.
For me, after I have decided what I want, and I've done the clearing and gotten rid of any of the old crap that is surrounding the desire, then I go about making it my reality, right? And so one of the things that we know, that we believe, that we teach is that until you make it your reality, it cannot be your reality, right? And so even in Christianity, it's like praise him in advance. You know what I mean? Like you get excited about the manifestation before you get the manifestation. You live inside of that reality before you actually live inside of that reality. That's actually how you get to live inside of that reality, right? So the more you make it real for you, the closer you bring it to your reality. So once I've done the desire work, then I go about making it real.
Okay.
Right? And so I imagine it, I visualize it, I feel it. I know what it feels like, you know, to walk around this apartment and this is where I live. I know what it feels like to drive this car and this is what I've been wanting for so long. I know what it feels like to see this money in my account. You know what I mean? Like I can close my eyes and instantly go to this is how much money is in your account, right? And the more real that feels, the closer it is to me.
Okay.
And so once you make it real, then you let it go.
Okay. So share with the people, you know, so thank you for that because that's powerful. But share with the people about the feeling and the feeling that it's real and like kind of how you know when the feeling is where it needs to be in order for you to be inside your manifestation process.
So it's really when you believe it, right? Like the first step will be the belief that it's possible.
Okay.
And then you're like, oh, I can have that, right? Because you've done the work before. You didn't believe that you were worthy of making $20,000 a month. But then you have this, there comes this point in your visualization and in your meditations where you're like, oh, that is a possibility for me, right? And so now you know you're on the right step. And so you keep visualizing and you keep seeing the account. You keep seeing the house. You keep seeing the partner. And not just seeing the partner, not just seeing the house, not just seeing the money, right? But seeing how do I interact with this partner? How does he treat me? How does his touch feel to me? Making that real, right? What does it feel like to walk barefoot in this home and know that it's mine?
Yeah.
Right? What does it feel like to live this life? What do I do on a daily basis? Right? So you fill in all of the colors, right? So when you come with the desire, it's real black and white. When you make it your reality is when you fill in the colors to where you can see, you know, like the different layers of it and you can feel the different layers of it. And then there comes a point where you close your eyes and you see it and it's jarring when you open your eyes and you come back to this current reality.
That's dope. I love that. You know, what you're describing, it sounds like the planting work. You know how we tell people like write the narrative, write the story so you can see the detail, you know, like all the like the little intricate details. So it's like you're actually living in this new reality. And like you said, when you come back out of that, it's like, oh my God, like, what is this? You see what I'm saying? Like I was so deep inside of that reality that's what feels real to me.
Right. And so because that's now what feels real to you, your subconscious goes about the business of making it happen. So like with you and I, you know, like I told you from the very beginning, I was like, oh, this dude's going to be my husband.
Straight Mac and Brothers.
I mean, I did. But once I had that desire, right, then I went about the business of making that a reality. And so like I told you, I would talk to your higher self. You know, like I would envision what our dates look like and what does our life look like? What does our communication look like? And so the more that I was able to see of that vision, like, remember I came to you and I was like, I want us to be more emotionally connected.
Mm-hmm. I remember
And
that.
you were like, well, what does that look like? And I was able to tell you because I had already lived inside of that vision.
Got you.
Right.
Okay.
And so that was, me going through the process of making it real
Okay.
for me. And so once it is real for you, what you have done is raised your minimum standard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because whatever your lowest minimum standard is, that's going to be your manifestation.
Ooh. Oh,
And so
you're gonna have to break that down.
I got you.
The lowest minimum standard, like what?
So like one of the things that I've told the women in the group is stop practicing worst case scenarios because you are practicing your manifestation. That's your lowest minimum standard, is that worst case scenario.
Which is basically what you're willing to accept or what you expect.
What you are willing to accept and what you're willing to accept.
Yes.
And so if you say, man, I want to make $20,000, but if I can just make $5,000, I'll be good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Get prepared to make $5,000.
Gotcha.
Because that's your lowest minimum standard. You are always going to hit that lowest minimum standard.
That's powerful.
And so at every step, you have to raise your lowest minimum standard, right? What am I no longer willing to accept? And then you have to become repulsed and disgusted by anything that is lower than your minimum standard, because again, you have to separate yourself from that.
That's powerful. I do want to talk about a couple things. Like there's so much we can go into with the lowest minimum standard, but I also want to talk about what you mentioned earlier, which is sometimes you'll have the vision, but it doesn't necessarily feel where it needs to feel. So you have to repeat it over and over again. So you mentioned a little bit about that, but I want you to go a bit deeper. So for a lot of us have had the experience, we want something and we're repeating it over and over again, and we're visualizing it over and over again for like days and weeks and stuff like that. Can you explain to everybody what that means to you? Like what's missing, or why do you sometimes have a vision and boom, you lock in immediately, and then you can forget it immediately, and then it manifests later. But others you have to spend time on. What's that telling you?
So what it's telling me is that there's still stuff surrounding the desire.
Okay.
Right? And so when I find myself going over it and repeating the desire and repeating the intention, I know that I don't believe I can have it.
Okay.
Right? And so I now have to work on my belief.
Mm-hmm.
I now have to work on my feelings of worthiness,
Mm-hmm.
right? I now have to work on making that my reality, because what I'm manifesting right now, so there's a difference, right? There is the space where you are repeating it, but that is because you are making it more and more real,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you feel the attachment to it already. You feel the reality of it already. And so you're repeating it because you are solidifying the reality of it.
Okay.
But then there is that space where you are repeating it because you want it so bad and you're so desperate for it. But what you are manifesting is the want of it and the desperation for it.
Wow.
When you can get over here, then you are manifesting the reality of it, right? So you have to get into that space where, okay, why am I repeating this? And so, when I find myself repeating, that's what I'll do. Like, okay, where am I at? Am I in a place where it's my reality? And it might just feel good to keep, practicing this reality.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I in a place where I don't believe it yet?
Mm.
And if I'm in a place where I don't believe it yet, then I stop repeating the desire.
Okay.
And I start to do the work that is surrounding the desire.
So that's where you might jump to clearing.
Yes. Go
Right.
back to, why don't I believe it?
Yeah.
Why don't I feel worthy of it?
Yeah.
And I'll go back into that, because you can feel the difference.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel when it is want, desire, and desperation. And you can feel when it's, I know this is coming.
Yeah. So that's important. So for those of y'all who don't know, at the Mystery School, we have a manifestation process. The first part of it is, accepting the fact that you are a God and God is being, and that you create your life. So that's like the standard. And then the second one is like choosing or deciding what your goal is going to be. Mm-hmm. Right. Next, we go into what we call planting, which is, becoming one with the goal, seeing those intricate details that Corina talked about. And the third is the clearing. But sometimes you need to go to clearing just before you're able to finish coming up and deciding on what you want.
Yes.
So you need to get the stuff out the way that's preventing you from saying, this is my goal, this is what I'm going to manifest, this is my reality.
So one of the things that I find so powerful about learning the process that we teach at the mystery school is the fact that it is linear, but it is also not. Right? Like once you learn the power of each archetype and each energy, then you can always identify, oh, I need to go back to conservationist. I need to go back to clearing, right? Before I can even plant. And so you think about it like a farmer, right? There are times he has to till the soil and make it ready for the seed that he's going to plant in the ground. And so that tilling the soil is clearing.
Okay.
Right? And so even though the monk, the intuiting the goal comes before the planting, sometimes you have to clear before you can plant.
Yes.
Right? And so then sometimes you have to clear after you plant, because now you see that there are weeds that are growing up with your seeds, right? Yeah. And so you got to go back into clearing before you can go into gathering.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's the power of just learning this process, is that this is always the answer, right? There is always, you look at what's happening, okay, I need to go into my visualization. I need to go into acting as if this is my life, right? I need to go into acting as if I've already manifested it. And then once you start to do that, then you can start to listen for what are the stories, right? When you get into, why can't I fully get into believing that this is my life? And once you can hear the stories, then you're like, okay, let me take that back to conservationists. Let me take that back to clearing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like the whole process is masterful. And, it is so like you're just putting blocks on top of the other, to build yourself up into that goddess God. Right. And you're putting one block of yourself on top of another block of yourself. Right. And just pulling all of the power out of all of it.
Absolutely. That was so powerful, I lost track of it. I'm like listening to Navy talk like I'm just watching the podcast and not a part of it. Like I'm trying to, I want to pull my notepad out and just start taking some notes. You see what I'm saying? Relax and take notes. So, all right, let me come back to Earth. Okay.
Come back.
Okay, so, woo, that was a lot. I did have a question for you, and this might, kind of come out of left field. It's still around deciding.
Okay.
And I want to know what your experience is with this and your opinion is on this. What do you feel about when we choose a goal that represents something that's less than what we know we should be going for, that represents that smaller part of us that you were mentioning before? Like, is that an experience where we choose, like, oh, I want to make an extra $1,000 a month, and like really Spirit's like, yo, you worth $50 a month. You see what I'm saying? Like $50,000, like that should be where you're at. Have you had the experience where you've gone too low? And if you do that, or for people who do that, what advice do you have to them to kind of get back to your potential?
I love that question. I really do, because the story when I quit the school in Asheville.
Yes.
And I was driving up that mountain. Like, I'm not finna keep driving up this mountain, okay, in the snow and about to kill myself. And so I'm driving up the mountain, and I said, all right, Spirit, give me 2 clients and I'll quit the job. Spirit said, here's 4.
Whoa.
Right? And when I got those 4 clients, I was like, well, wait, because this job is guaranteed money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't ready. It happened in 7 days. And I was like, I wasn't that ready. I said 2.
Yeah.
But Spirit was like, no, you are that ready.
Yes.
And so let me tell you where we should be versus where we often find ourselves.
Okay.
In the monk phase, we intuit our goals, right? And so we allow Spirit to say, this is where you are. When we choose, we are in human.
Yes.
Right? And we are saying, with my limited vision, this is what I think I can have.
Yes.
And so if you get into that space where you start to connect to Spirit, you start to connect to God, and you say, okay, what's next for me? Right? then you get this bigger picture, you get this bigger vision, and you get a bigger goal. But when you just within yourself say, okay, what do I want next? You know, like we had talked about before, you are often still connected to like the poverty and the lack and the disbelief. And so you're like, what do I want next? $1,000 a month. Right? But Spirit is looking at you like, but we're ready for 50. You know, like the stage is set for 50.
Yeah.
And so I feel like one of the steps that we have to bypass is choosing.
Oof.
And instead of choosing, knowing that I am God, and so the intuition that I get is not coming from an entity outside of me.
Yeah.
Right? It's just coming from the higher part of myself.
Absolutely.
That knows more than the human part of myself knows.
Yes.
That sees more than the human part of myself sees.
Yes.
Right? And so versus choosing a goal, you know, like that's easy. You know, like we can always choose, and that's why I tell the women, when you are intuiting your goal, if it does not make you uncomfortable, that's not the goal.
Absolutely.
Because the next big step, the next dope version, it's obviously going to be uncomfortable because you've never been that version.
Absolutely.
And so even us, you know, when we're talking about the place that we're moving into, there is a level of discomfort.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm like, what? I mean, the price tag has jumped up.
The price tag has increased, baby.
I'm like, yo, we need to all hands on deck. Yeah.
What is it? GoFundMe.
Yeah.
But
we might be reaching out to y'all for some support.
But that's the thing, right? Like that goal was
donation
intuitive.
link.
We don't.
Good.
We gonna have to sign. We'll work for rent.
We'll work for rent.
But that's the thing. The goal was intuitive. It was not chosen. And even the process of us finding that place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like that was not us just being in our human.
Yes.
And so I feel like, and I also, the reason why, like I told you, I don't worry about it, even with this exorbitant price tag, is because I know that when I expand, I'm supported.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's for me, like that's a really important part of spirituality, to understand when you're inspired. You know, when you get a divine download, when you get a intuition, whatever you want to call it, like understanding what that is.
Yeah.
Versus understanding, like you said, the choice. Yeah. When it's coming from the human part of you, the ego part of you, whatever, like there is a difference. You can feel, you can sense the difference between spirit talking to you and saying it's time to level up, versus your ego talking to you saying like this is what we've always done. And both of those are fine, but you know, for those of you all who are on this, you know, you're looking to level up your life, you're looking for more, you're looking to, you know, continue to tap into more and more of your greatness, you definitely want to be able to hear that intuition and spirit talking to you. And
again, you have to know that this is nothing that is coming from outside of yourself. You know, like for me, coming from, you know, a background entrenched in Christianity, you know, we were taught to listen for the outside voice.
Yes.
Right? And listen for the outside direction, when in fact there is no outside.
Yes.
Right? There is no outside voice. There is no outside direction. There is no sky daddy who is telling you turn left. Right? Like it is you.
Yes.
And it is just the higher version of yourself, right? The God version of yourself. So, you know, it is not coming from anything outside of yourself. And the more that you do this work and show yourself that you can trust yourself, the more you trust that voice.
Absolutely.
And the more that it leads you into more and more of what you desire. You know what I mean? Like you find yourself saying, okay, I'm going to listen and let's see what happens. Right? And it is always, you always see that you're on the trajectory that you set for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like, you know, when we say that we are God and goddess beings, you know, what we're really saying to translate that is that we believe that God the Creator has given us everything we need to manifest our lives. And that means we are essentially made in his and her likeness. So all the things that we need to be manifestors, to be creators, to, choose our destiny, all those things, we are endowed with every single tool we could ever want, we could ever need.
Yes.
And really the challenge for us as human beings is understanding those tools, learning to use them on a practical day-to-day basis, honoring, everybody else in their God and Goddess expression, and, living amazing lives.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we have everything that we need. Like Neville Goddard said, it is easier to know what the right thing to do is than it is to do the right thing, right?
Absolutely.
So we all have everything within us. It is just, do you have the fortitude to now put it in place?
Absolutely.
Do you have the fortitude to own that you are God or Goddess on the planet?
Absolutely.
Do you have the fortitude to own that everything is in your hands to create? Everything is in your hands to mold to your liking, right? And when you see something that is not to your liking, you have the power and the ability and the right to change it.
Absolutely.
Will you step into that? And there are people, there are spaces where you decide not to.
Yes.
Right? Like I know I'm not ready for that work.
Absolutely. Woo! Well, that's powerful. So I think that's a good stopping point for part 2.
We're going to stop there.
Yeah, but it's heavy. I got to go lay down and meditate and take it into my spirit. You know what I'm saying? Woo, Nare's dropping some gems. And I really do mean she's dropping gems. I mean, this is a woman who I've watched manifest amazing things. I've seen her power. And so for you to share these things, with people, I think it's a gift. So that's my opinion.
It is a gift.
All right, you guys. So we'll check in again very, very soon. But this is part 2 of our series. Check us out. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all those things. We'll see you next time. Peace and blessings.
Peace out.
All right. Later, ma.